The key question is, why did the revolutions fail? The failure of the Frankfurt Parliament was not quite the end of the 1848-49 revolutions. A wave of disorder swept through Germany in the spring and summer of 1849. Popular uprisings in Saxony, Baden, Bavaria, and some Rhineland towns were put down by Prussian troops. Constitutional changes obtained from rulers in Saxony, Hanover, and several smaller states were revoked, and liberals all over Germany were arrested and imprisoned. Some were even executed. By mid-1849, it was clear that the German revolutions had failed. In Prussia, the liberals were defeated, police powers were increased, and local government powers reduced. The three-class suffrage for the Prussian lower house ensured that there was no real democracy. The counter-revolution went even further in Austria than in any other German states. In October 1848, 2,000 people died in Vienna as government forces regained control of the Austrian capital from radicals. In December, 18-year-old Franz Joseph became the new Austrian emperor. By mid-1849, his forces had regained control of all of the Austrian Empire, including Hungary. Dissolving the Austrian Constituent Assembly, he subjected all parts of the empire to rigid control from Vienna. Martial law was enforced in regions deemed to be infected with liberalism. By 1850, it seemed as if the events of the previous 2 years had never been. Nothing had changed in most of the states. In 1851, as though to complete the restoration of the old order, Metternich returned from exile to Vienna to live as a revered elder statesman. By 1849, the hopes of revolutionaries so high in the spring of 1848 had died. By 1849, the forces of reaction were once again in power. The three dynastic empires of Austria, Prussia, and Russia continued to dominate Central and Eastern Europe. Most of the reasons of the failure of the German revolutions relate specifically to the situation in Germany, but the fact that the revolutions failed across Europe in 1848 and 49 had a major impact on Germany. In Germany, active revolution was comparatively rare. In Prussia, it was restricted to riots in Berlin and unrest in the Rhineland and Silesia. In the small states of the southwest, poverty-stricken peasants attacked their landlords, castles were stormed, and property was destroyed. In Baden, a People's Republic existed briefly but had little support and was quickly suppressed by the liberal government. Most revolutionary activity in Germany did not involve armed uprisings. Meetings, peaceful demonstrations, and petitions were the chief weapons of the revolution. In 1848, most German rulers gave in easily, if temporarily, to demands for a more democratic government, fearing that otherwise they might be overthrown. But almost everywhere, the old rulers retained control of their armed forces and waited for an opportunity to regain power. Growing disunity among the revolutionaries gave them that opportunity. There were wide differences in the political aims of liberals and radicals. While the former wanted constitutional government in all states and a united empire with a national parliament, the latter worked for complete social and political change within a republican framework. Nor were the nationalists united. There was no agreement on the form the new Germany should take: a unified state or a federation, a monarchy or a republic, Little Germany or Greater Germany. Moreover, different social groups in Germany had very different interests. While popular movements were at the root of the revolutions, it was the propertied classes who seized power. Once middle-class liberals secured the election of their own assemblies, most were as afraid of social revolution as the conservatives. Working-class movements and the organization of radical left were not sufficiently well developed to force social change in their favor. Most workers had a purely practical revolutionary aim, the improvement of their working and living conditions. Unlike their intellectual, usually self-appointed leaders, they were not concerned with or even aware of political ideologies that supposedly promoted their cause, nor were they united. Master craftsmen and the mass of unskilled workers had little in common. Karl Marx played only a minor role in the revolutions. Hastening back to Germany like hundreds of other revolutionary exiles in 1848, he was disappointed by the apathy shown by working class and correctly observed that the revolutions had staff officers and non-commissioned officers, no rank and file. Germany was still essentially agrarian in 1848. The 1847 and 1848 harvest were reasonably good. Consequently, the rural populations were not in desperate economic situation in 1848 and 49. This may explain the enthusiastic support for revolutionary movements among peasants and their role in suppressing revolution by serving as loyal military conscripts. Across Germany, the peasantry, the vast majority of the population, lost interest in the revolution once the last remnants of feudalism had been removed. Indeed, many peasants felt hostility towards, rather than affinity with, the urban revolutionaries. The failure of the peasantry to support revolutions was of crucial importance. Popular enthusiasms are often short-lived, and within a few months much of the active support for national unity in a national parliament had disappeared. This loss of support was encouraged by the slow progress being made by the Frankfurt Parliament, but in general, national consciousness failed to develop among the mass of Germans. Local loyalties remained strong and proved an important obstacle in the way of national unity. In the end, the revolutions failed because the enemy was stronger, better organized, and above all possessed military power. The story might have been very different in Berlin, for example, if there had not been a well-trained army available and loyal to the king. Given their military advantages, their determination, and often their ruthlessness, the princes were clear favorites to win in the end. Constitutional government and national unity could be achieved only on their terms, not through the well-intentioned but ineffectual efforts of a liberal parliament or by the uncoordinated actions of a popular revolt. Once order was restored in the Austrian Empire, and Austrian policy was still based on dominating Germany by keeping her weak and divided, there was no possibility of any moves towards a more united Germany being allowed to take place. Germany would only be unified once the military might and moral authority of the Austrian Empire had been overcome. The 1848 and 49 revolutions were a severe setback for liberalism, but not a total failure. At least the remnants of feudalism had been swept away. Parliamentary government of a sort had been introduced in Prussia. After 1848, virtually all monarchs in Germany accepted the need to modernize. Conservatives also accepted the need to show an interest in the social problems of the lower classes, if they were to ensure mass support for their policies and/or regimes. Moreover, the 1848-49 revolutions had helped to stir national consciousness across Germany.